Hello guys, welcome to another prior extinction video. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the fictional species in prior extinction and my opinions on them. So, let's start off with the carnivores, starting off with our bovinator. This is a fictional dromaeosaur, and from my understanding it's pretty big, kind of got a short snout, medium. It hunts from trees, interesting. So, this thing is relatively feasible. We think some species like Deinonychus could climb, possibly but I'm not entirely sure how big this thing is, so it's possible it could have hunted in trees. And we know it's got quite a short snout, which is interesting. We don't see that much in dromaeosaurs. We usually see them depicted with quite long snouts. Moving on to Dynamotitan. This is a fictional Spinosaurid, and it is interestingly more adapted to the land, more like Spinosaurus mirabilis we discovered quite recently, I think after this thing came out. And we know this thing uses its claws quite effectively. We know some Spinosaurs probably did that. And it's pretty interesting to think of a Spinosaurid kind of on land, grappling its prey with its claws instead of fishing. So that's something I think is quite an interesting concept. We know Mirabilis kind of did, but we think it's still hunted in water. But this thing was kind of fully land-based, and you can see it kind of had this raised hump, which is interesting. I think, not really a sail, more of a hump. That's interesting to see. It's interesting to see it still has a paddle tail, so possibly not evolved far enough to be fully terrestrial. But yeah, that's an interesting concept. Moving on to Therodontosaurus. This thing I think is a Carcharodontosaurus, and it is venomous, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. It says in the description it has a venomous bite, which is interesting. Now, venom in dinosaurs is something that has been discussed quite a lot, but we don't really have any evidence for. But it's quite probable some dinosaurs were venomous. I mean, in Path of Titan, we've got a venomous Metriacanosaurus. It's possible we could have a venomous Carcharodontosaurus. And it does have some quite elaborate head crests, which I like. I think that's a cool feature. And it's pretty interesting that they gave it that. We know some Allosaurids did have elaborate head crests, but we don't know how much they carried over into Carcharodontosaurids. And it's got very long arms. I think it's good for kind of grappling prey. We know this thing was faster than most Carcharodontosaurids. I think it was pretty fast. And interestingly, the juvenile has these kind of feathers, which is you don't see much in Carcharodontosaurids. Moving on to the herbivores, we have Acanthocordia, another Swedish sauropod, and this thing is a big sauropod of European. Interestingly, we haven't found many European sauropods. I think it's a titanosaur. It's got kind of very big titanosaur-esque, got the osteoderms on its back. The juvenile, I like the juvenile model. I think it's good for a juvenile sauropod. And interestingly, it has tail weaponry, which you can kind of see in the juvenile, but is a lot more noticeable in the adults. Yes, it's very interesting. We know stuff like Saltosaurus had tail weaponry, but we're not sure how far that evolved. Then we have Amphiceratops. Interestingly, it's a semi-aquatic ceratopsian. We know the vast majority of ceratopsians are land-based, but it is possible some of them did spend a lot of time in water, seeing as they are such large animals. Amphiceratops, it's described in the description as being hippo-like, which I think is pretty accurate. It's got a very kind of large, big, bulky head. You've got a big kind of nose, whatever's going on in its nose. To me, it looks like a very, very adapted Protoceratops. Because it's not got any noticeable horns, but yeah, and the The hatchling, I think, the sprite for that looks pretty good, because you can kind of see how the different head parts develop. So that's pretty cool. And our final dinosaur is Centicephaly. Now this thing is a pachycephalosaurid with antlers, and it is also venomous. I'm not sure where it carries its venom, but I do like the kind of quills on the tail, because that's an interesting concept in Pachycephalosaurus. We haven't really found a Pachycephalosaurus, but they probably had. It's an interesting concept. We don't know exactly if they had quills, but we haven't found any preserved quills, but it's possible some smaller species did. And this thing is burrowing, which is another thing we have found in some dinosaurs, not in Pachycephalosaurids, but once again it is feasible. And the adult Centicephaly has these antler-like structures, different to the regular Pachycephalosaurid dome. It's like very much adapted horns that have grown into these antler-like structures, and you can see in the juvenile that they're not present, and they kind of slowly grow from the back of its head over time, which I think that's a pretty cool concept. And yeah, Centicephaly is very interesting. The antlers are probably something that wouldn't really evolve in Pachycephalosaurids, but it is very interesting and kind of feasible, considering what environment involved in. I mean, it's possible that if it's burrowing, you use the antlers to dig, but it's an interesting concept. So overall, I really like these species. I think they've all got really interesting concepts. I think they're all designed really well to kind of be feasible animals in reality. I really like these things. I think they're a great inclusion to this game, including some species that aren't real, but are feasible in reality, and I think that's really cool. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and comment down below which your favourite of the prior extinct fictional species are. Goodbye.